episode 4, I believe now, of the Feed the Narrative podcast. And I have got somebody, well, everybody's been very special so far, but I've got somebody very, very special to my PR journey with me today. My good friend, Cam Doody, a former founder. If you've read PR for Startups and Growing Businesses, when I reference Bellhop, the moving company, it's this guy right here. He and his business partner, Matt Patterson, started that one, and now they run a VC group here in Chattanooga called Brickyard. Cam was the first person who allowed me the space to really focus on public relations, kind of took me from a marketing generalist, a comms generalist, and really gave me the opportunity, the resources and the time and the permission to mess up here and there to work on my craft and for public relations. So I always have a special spot in my heart for Cam. Cam, thanks for joining us. Give us maybe a little bio on yourself and like what you're doing now at Brickyard.
Thank you for the great intro, David. It's a pleasure to be here, and such a massive fan of what you're doing and your book, and it's just been so awesome to see what you've done post Bellhops. So I guess my background, I'm a founder. Prior to that, I was a kid that got just completely terrified with not having autonomy and freedom in charting, my professional path. I ran into startups from like fear of the 40-year corporate grind.
That's worth being scared of right there.
Yeah. And started a company when I was 25 called Bellhop, and ended up growing it to be one of the biggest local, regional, long-distance moving companies in the U.S. Thanks in large part to David, who ran our earned media in the early days, which was a huge component of how we grew the company, genuinely. And then we sold part of the company into private equity right before COVID, which was great timing and terrible timing at the same time. And I still serve on the board of Bellhop, and it's been an extremely interesting, challenging environment to operate a moving company in. It's been really tough for the last 5 years. About 2 years or a year and a half after my co-founder and I stepped out of the company, out of the day-to-day, we started a venture firm called Brickyard. And we're investing in really early stage companies from all over the country, top teams. And if we write a check into your company, you're moving functionally to, a very inconvenient place, Chattanooga, Tennessee, to lock in for about 2 years. So the Brickyard's about getting to $1 million in run rate at a minimum. It's about getting to product market fit. It's not an accelerator. It is just roughly 20 companies at a time building in the same building. We bought this building behind me, and everybody is leaving it all on the line. And really, you come here and you don't have anything else to do but work. And it's a pretty magic place. So really interesting. Last 3.5 years building Brickyard. We've invested in 44 companies now.
Wow.
Our second fund. And it's a pretty cool thing. You can go to justleybrick.com and check out what we're about there, but pretty unique, very, very odd bird and venture.
Yeah, and it's a special place. I mean, obviously I get the opportunity to kind of walk through there, at least once a month. There's always great energy in there. There's just something to be said about getting all of those founders who are seriously hungry. And I love the fact that, you go after founders who kind of like fit the Brickyard ethos, the worldview, and who are really chomping at the bit to really get serious about growing their organization to the next stage. And you get all of these hungry folks together in the same room. And it's a special place. I mean, I know you feel it deeply, but even for somebody like me that just passes through, usually when I'm passing out magazines that some of the founders have been in, I do my delivery day, you can feel it. And it's a really special place. My favorite thing actually is talking with people when they just get here to Chattanooga. As you said, it's not the easiest place to get here, but once you get here, it's a beautiful and wonderful place. And then, drilling it down to the actual footprint of Brickyard, what you're doing there is special. And I just can see every time I talk to them, they've got like this nose to the grindstone. They're working 18 hours a day, but they've still got this like twinkle of optimism still. in their eyes. And of course, the founder
they,
life is like twinkle in the eyes, and then down here.
their uniforms are still starchly pressed. They're still proud to carry their weapon into battle.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah,
they're not smoking cigarettes and covered in mud, dust, and
yeah.
blood.
Just yeah. You know what you should do? You should do a like a side by side. They do the picture of presidents on their swearing in day, and then presidents when they leave office. You should do
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna post a tweet. I'm gonna do a tweet today.
Sweet. I look forward to
Great
that
idea.
one.
It's a great idea.
Great. Great. Okay, we can just shoot the you know what for 30 minutes, but I think we should probably deliver some value to the three people who are going to watch this. I want to talk about, public relations. Obviously, nobody in my world knows startups better than, you and Matt, obviously seeing it from the founder side and now on the investor side. And I'd love to kind of like hear your perspective on a few topics drawing from both of those kind of vantage points. Those are both, very different vantage point, probably of the same process, but from very different places. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So I always say, I'm grateful that you gave me the chance to really focus on earned media. And I kind of gravitated to that space there because there were a few marketing folks on the team. And for those who aren't aware, Cam and Matt hired me, and I was on their team from the Series A to right before the Series C. So for 2 years, and we had some incredible stats. We had this dual-pronged earned media approach where we were going after national earned media, but we were also going after earned media in all the markets that Bellhop's had a presence in. And so for those 2 years, I did the math. We averaged a favorable media hit a day, Monday through Friday, somewhere in the United States. That's everything from the Chattanooga Times Free Press to the front page of the business section of the New York Times. All like super heady stuff, but it was a fun thing to be a part of. And I first want to ask you this from the investor kind of like side. Obviously, when you see a startup that's getting coverage, like relevant coverage, whether that is in a big national publication or a more niche like industry publication or a local regional whatever, that's got to be a good thing, right? An investor loves seeing that. Is that correct? And what is that a signal of?
It's just buzz. Buzz is a pretty general term, but if an investor starts to dig in on a company, and most of the time you don't know much about the teams you're taking your first meeting with, or a little bit, or you've read an article, or you've seen something, you don't have really depth of how the rest of the world is perceiving the company. And so when you kind of take your first temperature, your first read on a team, and then once you start digging into a company, if you see that the rest of the world is kind of seeing some similar things that you're seeing in this team, it's just, it's like a external validation, which everybody loves, and it also drives some FOMO. It's like, okay, this team's not completely under the radar. They've got some attention, and likely there are, other investors at the table. But the long tail of benefit of earned media is still just so unbelievably important, and it's difficult to attribute in numbers. I mean, you can look at views, you can look at whatever, but there's a real intangible to earned media that you will never see in a spreadsheet. And I remember in the Bellhop's days when we were getting a hit a day, and we were in like the the Tuscaloosa News, and we were in the wherever, like we were in a bunch of different cities, and so we're getting a lot of different press hits, and you talk to a board about like, hey, look, we got all these press hits, and a investor for San Francisco is going to see a lot of local news, and it's like, well, how powerful is this really? And we could tell you, like, you could show the lift in a market quarter over quarter, markets where we had some kind of local news presence against cities that we didn't. You could see it, and it was there was always a delay, but it was material. And like the second that we stopped the playbook of driving earned media towards more attributable marketing functions like digital marketing, where you're looking at views and clicks and, direct action conversion. I think we never got that muscle back, and it was
Interesting.
like people stopped sort of talking about bellhops in the same way as they did before. And we really did lose a big tool there. And I don't think we realized how important, earned media was for our company until the spigot shut off. So,
Interesting. So yeah, it's that validated. It's interesting you talk about kind of like that validated with the investors, but then also like I saw that myself in dealing with reporters. So again, we had that kind of strategy of the local and then kind of like the national. And I remember one time being literally on the phone with a editor or a reporter from a national outlet, and she Googled us while we were on the phone together, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are everywhere." And I was like, "Yes." And that almost created that what you were talking about, that feeling of FOMO. She's like, "Well, one, she could extend us that line of credit to include us in the story she was writing about because she saw all this coverage and we're not fly by night." But then she's also like, "Well, I've got to talk about them. If I don't talk about them, then I am missing like a consequential element in this story that like apparently everybody else knows about but me." So that's a really cool thing to see there. And I appreciate your perspective on once you kind of like shut that spigot off, you can at some point, PR is a long game, so it might not have been immediately you felt it, but like maybe a few months, a couple quarters down the road, you start feeling that.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things, like especially with venture-backed companies, your investors want to see like direct ROI on things, and so,
Yeah.
um, and we knew the second we started getting pressure, like, hey, we need to, turn focus away from, stuff that we can't run attribution on, towards things that we can, so that we're ensuring that we're using, capital in a creative way to the bottom line, and we knew the second that we started having those conversations, it's like you're already behind the eight ball and you're just like, hold on, guys, like there's no way for me to prove to you why this is so important. But Bellhops is not another moving company like every other moving company. Like there's a really specific heartbeat with this company that our customers feel very connected to, the unique way that we operate, and the types of people that we hire, to serve our customers. And like you turn that off and then you move everything to direct, performance marketing, that goes away. And in large part, I think it did. We had a very we had a time where we stopped telling our story and we stopped getting, organic sentiment around why Bellhops wasn't just another 2 men in a truck.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people you got to keep telling your story, even though like, man, we told this story so many times. Like I can tell it in my sleep. Sometimes I just find myself telling it like I'm a total psycho here. But like you got to keep doing it because there's so many people who either haven't heard it or maybe they've heard it once, and you got to continue to stay in front of them. And if you take the foot off the, like you say, if you take that kind of like foot off the gas pedal, you don't just start slowing down. Like you almost immediately start going back. Can you talk to me specifically about recruiting into different markets? How have you seen earned media overlay with recruiting efforts? Like if you're trying to hire in some top talent that is, if there's a competitive market for maybe that person or the skill that they have.
Exactly what that New York Times journalist did when they Googled you and said, "Oh my God, like how do I not know about this?" If you're hiring highly sought after, employees, high performance employees that have optionality on where they're going, I mean, they're digging into you deeply, and they're reading everything they can find on you, and they're listening to podcasts like this, and they're going and looking at, and it's way easier, to be sold by, a bunch of different tentacles that are leading back to the company that is, have one or two people like your recruiter and CEO of a company trying to, shill their own company, and tell you everything that you want to hear. When you're hearing the same thing from, 10 or 15 different sources, it's, it seems obvious. It is. It's just, that's humanity. We look for validation in multiple places to de-risk situations and open up clarity for ourselves.
Yeah. Uh, so on our agency side, so obviously we do the training with Feed the Narrative, and we've got Heed PR, which is our agency. We don't niche in an industry, but we do say that all of our best relationships are with organizations. We call them due diligence organizations. So before you do any kind of business with one of our clients, you're going to do research on them, whether it's a CPA firm, somebody handle your retirement, stuff like that. And I can see this obviously in the entrepreneurial world as well. It's like, listen, if I'm going to back this group or if I'm going to join this team, I'm going to do a lot of Googling around. And we work to make sure that everything, if anybody Googles one of our clients, everything that comes back on the back end of that Google search is going to support the notion that you should do business with them. They do business the right way. They've got the best staff and all that stuff. So it supports the idea that you should work with them. And obviously I see that in the entrepreneurial space. You do a lot of, I know this phrase gets thrown around a lot, but thought leadership. I started seeing it a lot at Bellhops. Like, you started getting asked to come get on stages at entrepreneurial or startup conferences and stuff like that. And obviously, if anybody follows Cam on LinkedIn or X, you'll see him in this booth doing a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. What value does that bring to you? And maybe break it into two parts, like back when you were a founder versus right now. How valuable is that to you, and in what ways?
Well, with Brickyard, we have no formal marketing structure whatsoever. And we're a pretty unique thing. We very much are this under the radar, if shop that is not out there kind of beating the bushes on like, hey, this is why you should, build your company in this way. And we do very little like outbound marketing, like, hey, look at us. We do a lot more just storytelling, like, this is what we're doing. And it makes sense for some people and it makes no sense for other people. And we've just very explicitly defined what Brickyard is, and we just tell that story. And so the only way that we can grow in the way that we want to grow through organic endearment or in the venture community and in the founder community is by just having conversations like this on podcasts where we can talk in depth about why we believe the things that we believe and how we uniquely see the venture space and the types of founders that we're attracted to, and what really matters in the early stages of building. And it doesn't feel like an ad, and it's not.
It's not.
It's just talking. It's just talking. And so, how important is it to us? It's massively important because people need to hear the message. They don't need to see Brickyard billboards or TV commercials, but the right people need to find us and really understand what we are. And so 100% important.
Yeah. So I think before I ask this next question, and I'll try to be as concise as I possibly can on this one, I just want to make sure that the people who are listening to this kind of understand where this is coming from. So Cam and I still work together. I work with Brickyard. And again, you have how many? 44? Is that what you said earlier?
44, yeah. Uh-huh.
You made 44 investments. And at any given time, you've got, a dozen to 20 startups, founders in the actual Brickyard space, building their organization to whatever the next level is. And so I work with Cam, and what I do is for each one of those groups that comes in for their residency at Brickyard, I work with each one of them for a month to 2 months usually to get 3 to 5 pieces of earned media coverage. And we do it for a few different reasons, but one of those is obviously some of the teams that come in, they've got one person, maybe 3 people, like very small teams, and they don't have a marketing person, they don't have a comms person, they don't have a PR person, they don't have time to deal with all that. So I'm able to kind of come in and broker that relationship between them and some earned media opportunities. And we initially talked about the benefit of it being around, like, again, if they're going to be going after their next fundraising round, they need to have some fodder out there when people are doing research on them. But can you talk to us about some other ways that earned media has benefited some of the founders that you've got under your purview at Brickyard? I know we work with a lot of the international staff members and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I'll break it down. I mean, earned media is helpful for immigration, for O-1 visas. It's helpful for enterprise sales. It's helpful for recruiting employees to the team. It's helpful for recruiting investors to, invest in the company. It's helpful for every class, whether it's B2B, B2C. It's helpful for communicating what your company is. I mean, it's important for SEO and your searchability, find your company. You can go on here, and it's also just helpful, like, for your current team to see, okay, like, we're building momentum and it's being externally validated, which is super important, because startups are super hard, and your team is usually under the gun, and it's nice to see that you're not just drinking your own Kool-Aid and that other people are seeing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to take that snippet right there, and that's going to be the whole podcast. I'm just going to push that out there. Cam says this to the startup world. Okay, so one last question, and this is going back in time, talking to the Cam 10, 15 years ago, whenever you first started Bellhops, and you were thinking about communicating the value of Bellhops to the masses and perhaps through earned media. So to those founders out there, what would your advice be to them as they think about the role of public relations in the future growth of their organization?
I mean, I'd say, the press is always looking for something different and new. They don't want to just be saying the same thing over and over again. And so my style has always been try to appeal to a very specific group of people, and don't care about what the other people think. Like, you just be you, appeal to a very specific person, which could be as simple as, like, I want to appeal to me as if I were the consumer, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to be everything to that profile. Like, everything that you do in your company is built for that group of people. And polarizing brands are, much easier for the media to get excited about, because it drives a reaction from everybody, either positive or negative.
Yeah. And we obviously did that at Bellhops, and you do it now at Brickyard. Again, if anybody follows Cam on social media, you'll see that he's not scared to talk about what separates Brickyard from a lot of the rest of the VC world, and how he truly believes that what they're doing is the way moving forward. And he does it in a way that even if you didn't fit, the Brickyard ethos, that world, you can kind of be like, okay, it's not repulsive, that proposition. So I always appreciate that about you, Cam. You're going to tell me what you think and how you feel.
For better or worse, my friend.
For better. It's usually for better. It's for better. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you here. And again, for anybody out there in the entrepreneurial space, if you're not familiar with Cam, Google him. You're going to find all kinds of good stuff out there. And of course, follow him on the social media platforms, because he is one of the most regularly posting and engaging and authentic people that you'll come across, which is a breath of fresh air, not just in the entrepreneurial space, not just in the business world, but in our lives. So thanks, Cam. I appreciate you joining me today, dude.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate you.